Hello and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. My name is Daragh, that's Shane.
Hello.
Two lads from Ireland talking all things rugby.
Yep.
And it was a mad week of rugby.
There was definitely a lot of it.
There was definitely a lot of it this week. We're going to be structuring the show. We're going to around the climactic weekends of the Pacific Nations Cup and the Rugby Championship.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start with just a broad review of the Pacific Nations Cup as a tournament. Personally really enjoyed it. It's going to be it's been massive for us. We've obviously got a load of new subscribers and viewers from it, and you're all very welcome obviously, and it's going to be nice to wrap it in a little bow and then move on as well from it and on closer again towards the World Cup. And once we've done that little review, we'll talk about Bledisloe 2 and the South Africa Argentina game, and in the context of those previews we'll obviously review the rather spectacular games last week. One game in particular springs to mind, and then we'll obviously talk about the Wales-England double header. I'm previewing this week and reviewing last week before moving on to talk about France v Scotland this week, and we'll also mention the Italy-Russia game that's happening before rounding up the show with the news of the week. If you want to if you like the show, if you want to subscribe to us, help us out, feel free to do so. We like it when you ring that bell. It's very important to us personally.
I suppose so, but you'll just get notified as to when we're uploading things. But beyond that, we do enjoy a bit of an active comment thread, so leave your thoughts down below.
Absolutely.
Always happy to read them and hear what you have to say.
Totally. Good conversations in the comment section are definitely something we like, and likes and shares are good as well.
For sure. So I suppose with that we'll dovetail neatly into the first one, which is, as you were saying, the PNC, the Pacific Nations Cup, finished up last week, the weekend just gone, and it was Japan, as it looked like from day one when they stuffed Fiji. It was Japan who claimed and were flawless, 3-0, absolutely the champs and deserved. And Fiji did actually sneak into second on try difference, I think, just over the unfortunate US, who put it up to Japan more than Fiji and more than the other two contests. So the US did ask them some questions, but Japan look really, really good, and it's nervous signs from an Irish point of view because they look really good in their own World Cup year. And they're in our group. The
US, they're a curious outfit. They're definitely getting there. They have a lot of they've obviously got their professional league. They got a wee bit of depth. They took a few guys out of this team this week. Ben Landry they took out. They took out John Quill. Took out Cameron Dolan. So a lot of heft from that pack went out, and the guys who came in were able to still do a job.
Similar job as well. They were still quite physical. And that's what they were bringing in that first half.
They played quite a structured sort of Tier 1-esque kind of game. It's just a notch or two below Tier 1. And the problem then when you run into a team that's going to strike from anywhere and score tries is that when that does happen, you just can't make up the numbers, no matter how well you're playing in general play. And they suffered for that a little bit. They did score a nice try. I thought Aj McGinty was running things really smoothly and had been doing so all tournament. He is their best hope. Good to see Madison Hughes get a bit of meat as well. He's a very exciting player, and we'd love to see him in the team a bit more often. I think generally speaking, those winger jerseys, as good as Blaine Scully has been, you might think of maybe even moving him to fullback and getting some lethal weapons. I miss Mikey Teo on that wing for the US. I think
in years gone by it was Zian Guanya and stuff lighting it up from that position. You need a bit of pace, out and out pace in the US team. Their sevens are all about pace, and this is why recruiting some of those sevens boys in couldn't hurt. Couldn't
hurt at all. And Ben Pinkelman actually off the bench had a couple of huge plays in the run up to one of their tries that they got at the very end of the game. Pinkelman made a great pickup, and he's a couple of times he's come off the bench from number 8 and been very impactful. So I'm excited to see what he does heading forward into the World Cup.
Well, what impressed me most was that they dictated some of the tempo. They managed to ask a few questions of Japan, managed to slow it down a bit on Japan. And to be honest, when it was that slow and laboured, Japan really struggled to get their multi-phase going. There was a repeated kind of sequence of play where Japan would go 1, 2, 3 phases of a hit up, and on the third they'd just drop the ball. That would be like one of their rows dropping it in contact against another row, and it's just that little bit of slightness counting against them in that area. But gee whiz, what Japan did so well was just flick that accelerator button when it was on straight away, and off turnover especially they were lethal and punished the US duly and appropriately.
And listen, the Japan as well with their professional league, these are the two Tier 2 sides with professional domestic leagues, and you can kind of tell they can rotate guys out. Those locks that came in, obviously didn't do as good a job as Vimpy and Luke Thompson had done in the weeks previously. They were a little more slight and definitely had a second choice ring to it. But my God, in terms of where they're making their money, Utamora at 10 is lovely, but Fukuoka and Matsushima on the wings with Yamanaka there at fullback, that's a sensational back three, and they're just making tries from nothing. Fukuoka in particular is just electric.
He scored another worldie as well, and it was like no, he scored one that was pulled back actually, and it was an absolute worldie of a finish, and it was just, he had a fraction of a heel on the line, but he like got through, chip over the top, gather. He's all class. He's all class, and he's all razzle dazzle as well. He really does the lot from that wing.
And
he's devastating.
In not all that much space, and it's the most dangerous a tier 2 team can be, when if they're given a little bit of space and time to move, they will just score tries. They'll find tries from nothing. You saw it against the Springboks last time out. It's the best recipe for a tier 2 team to cause an upset.
Yeah.
And it's probably why the US won't be able to do it, is because they don't have that razzle dazzle game as functional and professional as they are. And why Japan are a very scary proposition for ourselves, Ireland fans.
Scotland too.
And Scotland too,
yeah. They're coming to the World Cup with serious plans of making their first ever quarterfinal at home, and why shouldn't they be? They're the only champions in that group. Scotland and Ireland are champions of nothing right now, whereas Japan are champs of the PNC, and they're going to be hosting, and they're going to be dangerous. That's all I can say. They're going to be dangerous. That was that game, but there was also obviously the other big contenders who really lost it on day one with Fiji, who played out quite an attritional Islanders clash against Samoa. It was actually quite a good game, and Samoa had all the ball and all the territory. They were like 70-30 or above for the whole game. It was Samoa, and Fiji's defence was the story of it, because Samoa only got 3 points through it. Now, Sayuteni did miss 1 or 2 kicks early on that could have changed that, but by and large, they were struggling to get anything off against what is quite a dogged, determined Fiji side in defence. And the one instance when it broke for them from their own half, they scored an absolute worldie of a try.
That was got by a classic poach. I mean, they have that poach game too. It's by no means a classic effort from Fiji, but they're very solid all over the park. I think Body and Radradra working well together.
Centres now. That's kind of come into view over the last few weeks, going back to the Maori tests as well. They're the two standout centres.
You've options there outside them in terms of the winger jersey. You can go with Nkosi on one wing, and maybe Nakosi,
yes.
And Tuisova on the other, or you could go with Gonova can get in. Patrick Osborne played at the weekend. There's a lot of options, but that 3-quarter line is pretty settled. Frank Lamani and Ben Volavola are your halfbacks, and Body and Radradra are the centres, and you're starting to see the team take shape.
Yes,
and you have a pretty decent back row in there with Kunatani and Mata. Generally speaking, a very sharp defence is developing. We know what they can do if they're given a bit of open space with ball in hand with those guys. So now it's just about adding layers. I mean, they've obviously a little bit disappointed to relinquish this title, but big picture, it was probably a worthy lesson for them to learn against Japan. And obviously in that away fixture against the Maori, they learned a little bit about their squad depth as well. Moving forward into this tournament, I think they're going to be, with a very smart coach, there's a lot of learnings they can take from what has been a very active season already.
For sure.
It's just fine-tuning things. I think they're pretty much where they need to be, and it's all about performing on the day now. They're working out some little tactical things that they want to attack each side on, but it's top inches stuff. They have a very solid team.
For sure. And but from Samoa's perspective as well, they really did put it up to them, which was great to see. Sayuteni at 10 is definitely the right option, having seen him play two tests there now, and seeing what's in there behind him. It's definitely give him the go, and hopefully they'll get Nana Williams back in time, and I think they will, to join that squad and give them a bit more razzle dazzle out wide to try and unpick defences like this. But one encouraging sign was that their scrum was on top of Fiji the whole day, and then Fiji's scrum had been a point of big improvement for them. They've made strides on it in the last year. They're still new to that game.
And Nulapola is low key a very, very good loose-headed scrummager, and that back row is pretty lightning as well, with Chris Vui and Jack Lamb and TJ Ioane even at 8.
They can make stuff happen. They can make stuff happen all over the park, and it didn't quite click for them. But I think a lot of that was down to Fiji's very suffocating defence that was brought.
Also, I would love to see Leua back in the centre as
Yeah.
well. They've moved him to the wing the last couple of weeks. Get him back, get him with Lilo, get the band back together, and let's go breaking teams down through the middle. It's where Samoa are the most dangerous.
I also think that
offense.
once Nana Williams is free to play there at fullback, then you have options on the wing with what they have there being selected. So I think it makes the most sense to keep that centre partnership. And then suddenly it's a very dangerous prospect. And again, similar to what we were saying with Japan, they're in our group and they could. They have enough of a history, Samoa, and enough of a culture of throwing the ball around that they can upset some big guns if they get a lot right on the day. And things like their scrum going well, set piece wise being organised, that's a good sign for them to take on into the
set piece is fairly solid. It's about sort of the dynamism of their carries and their offloading game, and can they get that right? They have dynamic ball carriers in that back row. Can they link up?
They have distributing fast men out wide as well.
Yeah, and two very solid centres who are very dangerous, and we see that in club footy all the time. The question is, with big set defences in front of them, are they going to be able to break them down? Are they going to be able to get on top of some collisions and get the hands free and then be clinical when it happens? All of that needs to come good for Samoa to threaten either Scotland, Ireland or Japan. It's a tough pool for them, but they will take some positive learnings out of the game. They were well worthy of their win in the rain against Tonga,
for sure,
and that was a great opening day. They didn't quite reach the heights of that. Will be frustrated by the US. I mean, they stood toe to toe with them for 80 minutes, and despite having some opportunities, couldn't take it. But they will bitch about that Nige decision going against them.
Yes.
So there's a lot to be happy about if you're Samoa, and certainly they're in a better place than they were heading into this tournament.
For sure.
They seem to have a settled team. They found
a little bit of momentum, I think. I would say. So. Certainly off the back of, like, it was 2 defeats back to back, but they were against sides that traditionally they haven't had the edge over, and it's good to see them just being as combative and competitive as they are. We're testing a few things, but I'm hoping to see the full team back sooner than later. In terms of, I think they have one more match outside of the PNC window to play before. But come World Cup time, you'll want to see obviously Nana Williams back, and just the back line being firing a bit more, because it's the one thing that I feel has been missing is in the top edges is just their back play hasn't actually kind of translated to too many points this tournament, which is a shame, and it's not something you normally associate. But I think it is something that is remedied almost straight away if you keep Sayuteni at 10 and then have Nana Williams come in at fullback. I think suddenly that back line is very dangerous all of a sudden.
Yeah, totally. I think the way their schedule is working out is pretty useful for them as well. They've obviously got the start against they've got one more pre-game against Australia and Sydney. And that's obviously a tough outing, but they're going to get some learnings from it. And then the way they build into the World Cup, they got a game against Russia to start with, which is great.
That's their main target game, to try and win outright.
It's good to get it out of the way. It's good to get it won, and then obviously they've got a turnaround. So Russia will be off a short turnaround going into that game, so they'll already be on the back foot. And then the Samoans will play Scotland, and they can really throw themselves at that game. And who knows? They have a lot of talent, so things to be pleased about for Samoa.
Yeah, for sure. And then similarly, in sticking with the Islanders, Tonga got the win that they did deserve on the balance of play, and Canada got the beating they deserved as well. It wasn't like didn't have it all their own way. Canada, once the game was kind of lost, started throwing the ball around a bit more and looked a bit more competent once they did. They just have very little endeavour when the game's in the balance, and kick a lot of ball and are a bit aimless. And Tonga were bigger and stronger, and their pick and jam their pick and jam game was well drilled, quick and effective. And for the first half, it really did blow Canada away. When the game was in the balance, Tonga blew them away, and then they'll be annoyed a little bit because they kind of switched off and took the foot off the gas a little and allowed Canada back in. And Canada did score probably their best try of the tournament in this game, in that period of play when it was kind of lost for them. Threw it around, a beautiful sweeping move, breaking the Tongans down in the midfield, and then we're running in the score. But Tonga will be pleased about this performance on balance. They got the win that they desperately needed this side of the World Cup, especially as you were saying last week, they have to play the All Blacks or something before going in, which will not be a confidence builder. But this one was. They definitely showed superiority in pretty much every area on the pitch compared to Canada, which wasn't that surprising from what we were looking at with Canada this year.
They have a game against Fiji, and then they have a game against New Zealand, and then they have a World Cup opener against England, followed by a game against Argentina, followed by a game against France. I mean,
it's tough to argue momentum.
There's not going to be anything but hidings in their immediate future. I mean, I hate to be brutal. I mean, they have their positive aspects, but they haven't been. Like, there isn't the optimism that's there for Samoa or Fiji or USA.
It's because,
or Japan.
like you say, that instead of playing that offloading basketball can catch a cold kind of try-finding rugby, they tend to err on their physicality, which is right because they're genetically very, very big people and they have a physical pick and jam game. That's what they were bringing to this PNC more than any other team, was the pick and jam, repeated kind of phase play. And as good as that is in tournaments like the PNC, and even though this year it didn't win anything bar one contest, when you get up against tier 1 teams, they can just deal with that, and they can deal with that at a much like higher level.
New Zealand, England and France certainly won't be physically deficient against them, and the chances are Argentina are going to cut them to ribbons anyway. So it's not a wise tactic. But that said, Tonga at the moment aren't really in a position to take any of those sides on. Their real hope is to not finish last in the pool and to get the win against the USA, which is itself an ask. But that'll be a good game to finish up for them.
For sure, quite.
That there's got a few defeats to come between now and then.
I know, and it'll be a few sore bodies all the way along because that is not an easy group for them at all. But
they're not the team to watch.
No,
really.
But that's why it was important that they did get the win that they do warrant over Canada, and they are a stronger side than Canada by far, and managed to show that on the day, which was good. So I'm pretty much, I think we saw a lot of good things a lot of positives from all these teams. Like the only exception being Canada, who we weren't expecting much from, but they really are nowhere this tournament. But all this tournament's done is confirm that in my head, is they're not something to be worried about. And it's Italy who are in their group as well. So
Italy, New Zealand, South Africa, and then their final game against Namibia.
So it'll be between them and Namibia duking it out for probably the worst side in the competition.
We don't know what Namibia
will look like yet. Haven't seen sight nor sound of them. So they could turn up and be awesome. They could turn up and Canada will actually swat them aside. We don't know. But I think they probably won't be able to handle Italy. That's that much I'm pretty certain in saying. The main story, let us not dampen from, Japan have been awesome, and this is our first look at them this year in World Cup year, and they did not disappoint. They played with pace, with precision. A few new personnel there, people who are applying their trade in Japan for that domestic league, and look proper rugby players.
How about that Michael Leach try?
Awesome. My God, what a worldie of a score. And they produced so many
highlight reel tries, and just an awesome, the people's team. What can I say?
Great to watch them. The Brave Blossoms, the Cherry Blossoms, whichever you'd like to call them, but they're awesome. And Fiji as well. Fiji lost this tournament on day 1 to those Brave Blossoms. Got absolutely blitzed by them. Couldn't live with them in Japan. Maybe a different story if it were played back on Suva in Suva, you don't know. But I think there's enough quality in this tournament that definitely some of these sides are going to cause problems for the big tier 1 teams. I'm looking at Fiji, I'm looking at Japan, and a little bit in particular, and I'm looking vaguely at Samoa as well. I think Samoa have more of a chance, just purely where the US are at, like you were illustrating. They're a bit less about that helter-skelter, let's find tries, a bit more about let's do the fundamentals well first, and that style just matches up poorly against tier 1 teams who just have more resources to do that with. Whereas Japan, Fiji and Samoa, if they can get all of themselves right, those are 3 to watch in the World Cup, because they can find tries out of nowhere and create problems for teams and be a headache and a nuisance to deal with.
Awesome. So, and congratulations to Japan. It was a great tournament, a lot of fun to watch, and hopefully they in the years to come, the post World Cup era that's about to dawn upon us, hopefully they stick with it, and maybe we get a Six Nations style PNC where 5 games are played. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that too, because they're great teams. They were great contests. It's a great tournament. And all. It's just it's one of the better tournaments in world rugby at the moment, and Japan are champs of it, and they'll roll into their home World Cup as such, which is ideal. Indeed. All right, so we'll move on with that, I think. Yes, absolutely. And move on to the more eye-catching, I suppose, tests of the weekend. We buried the lead. We did bury the lead a little bit in terms of what was headlining the show, but we are going to now turn our attention to Bledisloe. Bledisloe 2 this weekend, but we'll just have to look back on Bledisloe 1, considering what happened as well, because obviously this weekend it'll be Eden Park where they play it back, New Zealand versus Australia, but last weekend in Perth the story was all Wallabies. It was magnificent. I'd say Checa was delighted watching it. It was like I teleported back to 2003. There was a full stadium in Australia to watch a rugby match, full of gold, full of a great atmosphere, and they came out and played gorgeous attacking rugby.
Yeah.
Gorgeous attacking rugby. They had a lovely balance to their team. James O'Connor gave them so much from 13.
He looks such a 13 for them. It's been hilarious.
I was just noticing it, that there's a classic 13 in the mould of Brian O'Driscoll, who's creative but not quite a distributor, who can take a line on but also offload the ball, who opens things up and catches the eyes of defenders and is truly the link between inside and outside. Like, he's in that mould. That's the kind of player he's trying to be, the Brian O'Driscoll mould of player. And it's a while since you've seen a 13 like that. They used to be everywhere, but now the 13s tend to be very rudimentary. They're either one thing or the other. And James O'Connor is looking a bit of everything now. It's early days, obviously.
It's only one test, obviously.
But he was fantastic.
Yeah. It's the first time I've been excited about an Aussie midfield partnership in quite a while, because Currie's obviously been on fire,
knocking them away like Skittles,
literally bowling them over, and yeah, that lovely balance that's potentially there. It has a kind of shades of, if you're talking O'Driscoll Roberts Lions combo from 09. That lovely subtle touch, in like the subtle touch of the 13 creating space for the big man in a 12. And then with Beale slotting in at fullback, and Lele Fano and Genia, but now Phipps as well, presenting another option at 9. He was really good actually as well.
Yeah, there you go. You mean Nick White?
No, not Nick White. Sorry, not Phipps.
Phipps. Yeah, I was about to get alarmed.
Yes, no, Phipps. No. Nick White. Sorry, offering another option there. Their backline has a bit more balance than it has in years, and even with Folau there was always a topsy turvy. Off balance.
It was always just about Beale and Folau,
and
what Beale and Folau could do, and yeah, exactly. So now it feels like they're without the fulcrum of Folau, they're trying to make it about everybody. I still think Beale is a very crucial attacking point, because even no matter what else is happening on the field, Kirtley is a stalwart.
The try he grabbed towards the end was an awesome line, and he has free reign from fullback to find those holes, because he's great at them. He went in untouched.
Probably better at fullback than he is at 12. He's a little unshackled a little bit from the distribution role. He can still come in and do it, but certainly the creativity of O'Connor frees him up a little bit to play in those wide channels, and you forget how effective he is. For sure, not at 10, but in the wide channels, in the tram lines, doing that show-stopping work, and it was outstanding. The offense of them was outstanding, and so too were their locks, and I would say all three locks. Adam Coleman off the bench was massive, and Arnold and Rodda, who you had been critical of, were both huge.
They were huge today. I'll give them credit when they're due. The scrum stood up as well, and that's a lot of their drive too. But around the park, even Arnold had a lovely touch in it for Loto's try in the corner, the little 2-on-2 It was Arnold took it to the line, got the hands free out, and got the man in, and it was great. Lovely subtle play from the inside forwards. And to be fair, looking at their pack now as well, like their scrum was excellent, but also just looking at Loto, who scored that try from 6, a big wiry kind of guy. I know you don't love him.
I don't love him.
I know you don't love him, but I'm just looking at the way the pack's orientated, and I'm like, this is a bit more Aussie, all right. I can see these guys linking in the wide channels, setting a 2-on-1, getting the offload away, picking the pass, and then like. If a Wallaby side are orientated that way, they can find tries against anyone. They can, and that is what we saw this today.
It's the recipe for success that we sought, and they can be such a difficult team to get a read on. It's all been very messy so far. Kurandrani and Karevi in the middle, and obviously that opening day against the Bok B team, where the same locks were just bowled over by Ebenetzebeth and company, and. A part of that is just how bloody good South Africa are and how much depth they have, and then another part of it is that the Wallabies were looking that good. And you're right to point out the scrum at their starting props, Scotty Seo and Alan Alatoa, excuse me, are fine scrummagers, very good scrummagers, and a little worried about what's in behind them, but their first up can match anybody seemingly. That said, I think we have to talk about the other side of this game's coin,
which is the fact that the All Blacks were completely and we will talk about the red card, but Australia were getting on top of this game from minute one. They were sharper, more physical, more playing the game in the right areas, not infringing with anywhere near the same inconsistency that New Zealand were. And talking about combinations, like New Zealand really just don't seem to know where they're at the moment at all. Lemape was on this time around, and we saw a different centre partnership.
Came on off the bench.
Did he come on? It was Linnett Brown started. Sorry, that's right. I was picturing the tackle later on that he had to make. But Yeah, Leonard Brown and Goodhue still there as well, and we're all just a bit of a jumble hodgepodge in the middle of the field. The Barrett Mo'unga axis did yield one lovely try late on. Barrett took a line off Ritchie that was excellent, and it kind of got them back in. That was with 14 men.
Barrett, there's a lot of criticism. Obviously, at the new shiny thing is to blame. That there's a lot of criticism going on about the Mo'unga Barrett comparison. You know, why do we have our best 10 at fullback, etc. I think Barrett's a lovely fullback. I think Barrett's the best thing about this team, and I don't think Ritchie's too far behind. I think it's everything else. Frankly. Obviously, without Retallick, they struggled a little bit for that physicality, but it's the physicality that they've made a name for themselves on. It's since 2017 they have moved away from being the All Blacks that won the last World Cup. They've moved away from being that show-stopping, try-scoring team, and have tried to be more functional, more bludgeoning, a sort of test-level Crusaders who are going to blitzkrieg teams and out-muscle them and outwork them. But time and time again, we've seen the picture of it not working. We've seen South Africa shut them down in offence because they're not as potent last year in Wellington and get some defensive tries off against them. And even that, the All Blacks still managed to score some tries, so it's deteriorated since then. Against Ireland, you saw a baffling pick-and-jam style game that they played against Ireland, the most capable team out there dealing with that. They didn't get a thing off. The Boks last week as well. The Boks do have a great defence, but the All Blacks got one play off the whole game.
They barely got anything off against Argentina as well, and ended that game defending their own line for dear life, and praying for the whistle, which saved them.
They're picking Rico Ioane, who's out of form at the moment, but he's still probably worth his place there.
He was very soft on defence now, I thought. I thought he was a bit absentee-ish on a lot of those plays. You're right in saying he's out of form. He looks a bit sluggish.
He's not what an All Black winger... I know he has been, and this is why the temptation would be to put faith in him, because he has been that electric player with ball in hand. And then on the other wing, you've Ben Smith, who it's sort of sacrilege to say anything bad about, and I kind of agree with it, because he's rugby lore. He's one of the great players of all time. But right now is not playing well at all.
No, he's not.
He's all over the place. He looks slow. When he gets the ball in a bit of space, he's not making anything happen. He's just not looking like Ben Smith.
He's a few plays passing him by. Like he came in at one point to intercept something, and it hit him on the back of the... He just got turned around, and he was all over the place, and that was nothing amounted from it, but it's just rare to see him coming flying in without knowing fully where he's at.
He's not adjusting that well to his diminished pace, and that Reece Hodge try at the start of the game, if you watch that back, what Ben Smith does is just baffling. I mean, he's coming from deep. There's a wide pass. Australia are in possession. There's a wide pass that's nearly intercepted, and the Wallabies just get outside it, and the ball gets to O'Connor's hands. And Ben Smith, from covering basically at fullback, there was no fullback covering, comes flying into the line, buys a dummy from O'Connor on the inside, and just gets completely lost in the play.
Turns around and trips over his two covering forwards out there as well, and sets Hodge free.
Yeah, O'Connor just pops it back inside to Hodge then once Ben Smith is gone, and Hodge runs in for the try, and it was a great play from O'Connor and a part of this brilliant Wallabies attack, but it was poor from Ben Smith, and that's not something you're often saying. So they got to find themselves right now. Kieran Reid not doing it right now. Sam Whitelock not really doing it right now. Brodie is when he's fit, but he's not fit right now. And so it's a headache for them, and they should absolutely start TJ Perenara every game at scrummy as well.
I think so too,
because he's a defensive weapon as well as everything else.
Because they started two sevens. They started Sam Kane and Ardy Sevilla in the flanks, which some would say are 2 sevens. I actually think they're not quite the traditional open side that you would want in there. I think the only one they have in that mould is Matt Todd, and maybe he's not quite at the level either. Because certainly what they're missing compared to the team that won the last World Cup, there's no McCaw and Kaino in there at all. And they got
rid of Shannon Frizzell.
They got rid of Shannon Frizzell.
Cut him from the
I thought he did a grand job. I really do think that in this back row, what they're asking Reid to do most of the time, because like when Dane Cole starts plays as he did here,
by the way, Dane Coles is still great.
He's still awesome.
He's still brilliant.
He operates in that wide channel, which is basically the role that they had Kieran Reid doing with ball in hand in the last World Cup. Now you see him more often one out from the ruck, hitting it up. Kieran Reid, he's not in that wide channel, which is where he operates his best work, and his best play of this game was a restart play where he batted it down for Laumape, and they nicked that try after the Aussies had just scored one, which is a great play, and he's super athletic.
More athletic than physical.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't understand why they have him doing that grunt work when he's not actually that effective at it, and I think like when
it's because they're missing Jerome Kino.
Yeah,
they haven't filled that jersey at all.
No,
and playing the 2 7s in there and ditching Frizzell is no solution because it forces Reid to take up a job he's not acclimatized to doing. And
the balance is just all off in that back row. But similarly, the centres, like now, Sonny Bill has played a bit of more Mitre 10 Cup. He's going to come back in. The rumour mill has that he will start in Bledisloe 2 coming up. They need him playing some spectacular footy for them because at the moment their midfield just isn't working.
The media has finally caught on and is laying into them as only the Kiwi media can do to their rugby teams sometimes. Like, we think our media is bad, you think Australia's bad, and most of the time you're right that the Kiwi media is pretty chill, but then the All Blacks start to go on the wane and they just lay into the team. And I wonder if it's time to start pushing the emergency button and starting to get these boys back to, like, do a blitz camp and do it now in terms of getting the ball skills up, making sure that we can execute 5-on-4s when they're on.
Yeah, kick return tries when they're on.
Scoring tries. What's the game of rugby about? Scoring more tries than the opposition. That's the All Blacks that won the last World Cup. And I'm sure that they can find a team that's talented enough to be the All Blacks. But right now, they're playing like a Northern Hemisphere team, and they're not actually as good at it as the Northern teams.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. You saw it in Twickenham last year when they nearly won, and it was England kind of let them get out of there without getting the beating they deserved. Ireland did no such thing for them the week after, but it was a very similar picture. And South Africans are demonstrating for us as well. And now with Bledisloe, the Wallabies showed us a different tack where it's exactly that approach. What is the game of rugby about? Score more tries than the other side.
And the All Blacks, where usually they just revel in those kinds of games. I mean, the Wallabies have got plays off them before, but usually, like, they played out some classic games. Do you remember that game with Barrett back into TJ on the inside after the Wallabies took the lead on 77 minutes? The All Blacks came back on 78 with that TJ try. Yeah. And that was what they were. They were just the team that was going to find the try from anywhere and everywhere. And they're so out of practice with it. They're playing such a more functional game that they're just not right. And it's time to get them playing that attacking footy. Get Sonny Bill and his offloading game in there. Get Shannon Frizzell back.
Maybe get Ben Smith out of there if you're sticking with Bodie at 15. Who's missing, notable for his absence.
Get him in there.
Yeah. But even the Crusaders, the guy Severis has been grabbing tries from the wing. I think he's more the form winger than either Rico or Ben Smith, to be honest, because Ben Smith was playing 15 for both All Blacks and for the Highlanders this year, and now he's been thrust in on the wing. He's not quick enough to play wing. No. So
and Barrett's
either you're going to drop Richie Mo'unga, put Barrett back to 10, and then pick Ben Smith at fullback, which I think can make sense too, or you stick with what I think is probably a preferable option, which is Mo'unga at 10, Barrett at 15, doing a very Ben Smith role from there. Certainly on defence, he covers a lot of that.
Karevi Perps aside,
but I don't know if Ben Smith's making that tackle either.
I don't think so.
Karevi was in full monster mode. He was absolutely Jonah Lomuing the All Blacks up that touchline.
He was not to be tackled at that point. So I agree with you. I don't think Ben Smith is in form enough to pick him. And listen, it pains me to say it, and he still remains one of the great players. But right now, like, you got to be. This is what the All Blacks are. Like, Doug Howlett becomes top try scorer, and then at 25 you're done. Yeah. You know, this is what they do, and Ben Smith isn't at the level right now, and there's just a little too much levity around the guys who've been there for that long.
Yeah. Your Sam Whitelocks, your Kieran Reeds, your Ben Smiths. Yeah. Very tough to drop them, but are they doing the job?
Well, that's the thing, is that the worrying thing is who's coming in behind us, and I guess we can round it up by talking about that red card decision briefly on Scott Barrett. I mean, what a clueless play from Barrett.
Yeah, there's no controversy on this podcast. By the letter of the law and by the guidelines that were released, it's a red card.
Yeah,
and like it's an automatic red card. You can look for mitigation, but looking at the incident, I actually see more aggravation than mitigation in it. Like I'm looking at a guy who there's no attempt to bind at all. He's dropping a kind of forearm shoulder thing, elbow really into the head of a player who is being tackled, but you're standing upright.
It's open space, and he's all the time in the world to not do what he's doing, and he does it. And there's a lot of people who don't think it's a red who haven't, like, I feel like I'm going to have to say this a lot over the next month or so when the World Cup is coming up. There's a video that World Rugby released, I think, at the start of May, which is important for people who want clarity around this area to watch, because it offers that.
Yeah.
And it's about 11 minutes long, and it details like how exactly these things are officiated. I'm not going to go into the full minutiae of it,
But it's worth watching, and you get the impression just even listening to the commentators on the game, even the Aussie commentators were like going like, "Oh, gee, it's harsh," and I'm like, you're going to colour the discourse by saying it's harsh. It's not harsh. Just watch the video, and it's actually by the letter of the law. That is what the decision is. That's what it's going to be at the World Cup. So it's important.
They have a very clear decision-making framework around it, where contacts to the head are initially decided as a red. Contacts like that, you find out if it's a high tackle or a shoulder charge. In that case, it was a leading with the elbow straight to the head
with force.
Is there mitigation? The guy's dipping kind of, but there's open space. He's done it with force. He has time not to do it.
He
and
himself
chooses
is
to do
upright
it
in his body position in terms of entering the tackle.
There's just no way it's any other decision, and Garces got that 100% right. And folks who are critiquing it haven't seen that video.
No. Also, this interesting little tidbit on Garces: he has now given away exactly half of history's history's red cards against the All Blacks. Half of them have been given by Jerome Garces,
and the other half by all other referees.
That's mental.
It is a bit, but I can't speak for the other ones. I don't exactly remember them, but in this instance, he's correct. He's correct.
Yeah, and just officiating the way it should have been, and it did cost them. Obviously, they couldn't live with the way the Aussies. One thing that changed.
They started losing that forward battle that they really wanted to dominate.
Yeah, well, one thing that happened was the Aussies just stopped kicking it. They had a few exit plays in the first half that were kick related, but they just played from their own half the rest of the game and just wouldn't give them the ball and ran them around and played exactly as you should play. 14-man side, pulled them this way then that, and eventually picked them apart. And
they were loving it.
It was wonderful to watch.
They were up for a game of high tempo trans-Tasman footy, and the All Blacks were not there for it.
No.
And got duly spanked.
Yeah, and Perth got treated. The Perth factor. They got treated to an absolute classic of a game.
I mean, listen, I don't live in Australia, but some things are obvious, and Perth is rugby country. Western Australia is rugby country. Cutting the Western Force from Super Rugby was a really cutthroat and silly move, and yet they're still supporting it. The Western Force is still out there playing in the NRC, and it's an awesome rugby town that's actually filling stadiums, and a 60,000 seater.
Full
awesome stadium,
and singing and loud.
Optus Stadium. They were loud. They were. It was like I teleported back to the start of the millennium when these games were everything that they're built up to be, and this one truly was.
Yeah, and congrats to the Wallabies. Great to see some proper Australian footy and putting the All Blacks to the sword.
What do you think is going to happen this week then, in the interest of previewing the next game?
I suspect. Yeah, well, we're looking at Eden Park this time around. Probably a bit of a backlash of some kind. I'm just looking for a repeat of some form from that Aussie pack and backline. I want to see them similar levels of commitment and focus, because like you said last week, when the Wallabies beat the All Blacks, and they have done in this cycle, it's always about discipline and real focus. And it would be very disappointing to see them back up a performance like that with a bit more of a wishy-washy.
You can bear in mind, I think it's 2000 and it's early aughts since they won Bledisloe.
There you go.
That's what's on the line.
It is on the line. They keep it alive, because if they lose this game, obviously it's retained and that's game over. But they have a chance. They have a real chance. And for the first time in years, the All Blacks look rocked and vulnerable, very vulnerable. So
that said, I've never known the media to tear into the All Blacks and not to get a backlash.
Sure.
And hopefully it arrives. You talk about focus and discipline. You have to imagine that the All Blacks are hitting the tackle bag something fierce this week, and are going to come out with all of that. The Wallabies can look unfocused, and then this week looked brilliantly focused by comparison, and you might see a reverse of that from the All Blacks. I'd like to see them do Kappa Pango. They haven't brought it out yet. They've done Kamite 3 games in a row and have played poorly by their standards in all 3.
Interesting.
Let's get the team written haka. Well, that's always what they do for big games. Maybe they're saving it for the World Cup, but whip out the Kappa Pango. Let's make it a big game.
For sure. Well, as they were professing to care more about Bledisloe than the tournament, and now Bledisloe's on the line. So you'd expect a big counter performance from the All Blacks. Don't expect to see the same kind of looseness that they had in the first half. But what I'm really hoping for is just a proper contest, like classic Bledisloe game. I want the Wallabies to travel and turn up and actually perform. It would be very disappointing if this ends up being a blowout, which historically speaking you'd think it would be. If the All Blacks were to be caught cold in Perth and then have to come back, they'll tend to dish out a backlash. So that's probably what the bookies would say is the most likely. But I'd love to see a one-score game and a proper contest in this.
We don't know, but it would be nice. There aren't too many games left for Australia, but it feels like they have a nice balance to their side, and it could be a very useful performance. And a victory, an actual Bledisloe Cup victory, it would be massive for them.
It would get them right back in track. Where
and
for the last 4, it would very much hurt New Zealand. It would make them a wounded animal going into the World Cup.
Yeah.
Whereas the Wallabies need a little bit of something, a bit of momentum to spark them into life come this side of the World Cup. And listen, that James O'Connor at 13, what a find! Because Kurandrani was not working.
He was better than anyone could have hoped coming back into that side. They'd heard buzzes about him. He's a different man. He's changed, but like to slot in and look like such a natural 13, like for a guy who's played 10, 15, wing, 12 everywhere, and then he comes in and he just looks like a perfect 13. Hopefully they can keep it going, and as you say, focus is key. When they look unfocused, that's when they get really loose and terrible.
And coach killing errors. So you'd hope to see only few of them and a proper competitive Bledisloe too. Let's have
absolutely.
It. Right. So I suppose we'll move on to the Springboks, the champions, which we haven't even kind of buried the lead again on that one. But the Springboks are champions of the Rugby Championship. For the first time ever, when it was the Rugby Championship.
That's right.
First time since 2009 that when they last won the Tri-Nations. So it's a decade coming.
A barren decade for the Boks.
Yeah, very much so. Coupled with an absolutely dominant decade from the All Blacks. To be fair, like that's what they were up against. But it's great to see them absolutely take it to Argentina in what could have been a tricky game out away from home against a dangerous side who did get a try off in the very early doors and go 7-0 up, and you're like, what?
Well, you have to have thought that the Springboks this week were understanding the enormity for them personally winning the Rugby Championship would mean, and were presumably Razzie was going over the tape of what has happened. They have been caught cold in Argentina before. It's the easiest thing in the world to happen. They can be lightning sometimes, and a combination of that readiness and focus and then that early try would have sharpened the Springbok minds, and they were very much on the job. Focus again is the word, but that was very much what they were going for. And it was. But then when they started playing just their footy against the Argentina team, there emerged a massive, colossal gap in every facet of the play, and
particularly in the Type 5.
Well, Argentina aren't that bad a team. They are pretty bad in the Type 5, but they aren't that bad a team everywhere and all around the pitch. And like you say, particularly the Type 5, their offense after that first play, which perhaps revealed, like, if you flood the channel inside Delindi, outside that initial forward defence and inside Delindi, in and around Pollard's channel, not that it's Pollard's fault, but just if you flood that area, they don't resource it that well. You can get a bit of profit against their D. It was a nice little variation, and then once they got the line, it was flawless from Sanchez. Sanchez really showing what he can be for Argentina and why they need to keep the faith in him. But everywhere else, like for the rest of the game, Argentina's offense could get nothing off, and it was again a masterful Lucanio Am leading that defense with his lieutenant Delindi inside him, who were just nothing was getting by them the whole game,
or outside them,
and they were just stopping it all. And then when Argentina did try to go narrow, obviously
the steals just came straight away. Either the dominant hits or the steals, or one or the other, or both. And it was
men against boys, and the Springboks looking brilliant, brilliant.
The form side of the world right now, not just the comp, and very worthy champions. But some of the tries they took were expertly taken as well. Even some encouraging signs from a World Cup point of view. That period of pressure, sustained pressure that led to Faf being sin bin, so then Colby has to slot in. Does a masterful job from 9.
That whole sequence was one of 2 in the game, one in the first and one in the second, when Argentina actually had a bit of pressure on them and they were trying to attack, and the Springboks defended and absorbed that pressure. Got the big steal. It was Delindi on that occasion who got a poach, and up the pitch they went and scored a try.
Awesome.
And that is, again, it's what breaks the back of games, and that try in particular, the combination of Kitsoff and Mostert before Pollard went in for the score, was just, it was forwards just running over each other and getting the hands free and enjoying themselves, but also having the dexterity to link up and run smart lines. Like free-flowing attacking footy from your Type 5. You gotta love it.
And you gotta love the fact that the Boks are fearsome again. They're a proper force in world rugby that you need to be afraid of, and all teams, should they be drawn against them, will be dreading that fixture, and that's the appropriate place for the Springboks to be. And it's just it was a really encouraging signs. The fact that they kept Argentina at such an arm's length and they silenced the crowd repeatedly, because the crowd did effervesce back up at one point and then grabbed another try just to kill it stone dead. And like a very ruthless showing.
It was totally ruthless. I mean, there was a great crowd in Salta. It was a lovely stadium. Apparently that's northwest of Argentina's big rugby country over there.
Right.
They were presumably buzzing to get a test, and God, hearts broken by a ruthless Springbok side. One thing that I will say is that they're getting almost a touch more, you can call it sensibility or hubris about them. Like, they're not, maybe it's not hubris, but back in the day, even Heineken Meyer era, Alistair Coetzee era, and even last year, the Springboks would have been very much, we like to maul every time we get a penalty in your half or going to the corner. And now they're actually taking 3-pointers pretty routinely, and they just have confidence in themselves. They have confidence in their D, first of all.
That's the main thing.
And then they have confidence that they're just going to get up the pitch again and they're not going to concede those points back. Their discipline is pretty great, but there is one area that the Argentina made the adjustment. In the first half, they just kept kicking their restarts, of which there were many, straight to Dwayne Vermeulen, who was taking them on, and away he goes. He's Dwayne Vermeulen. He had a phenomenal game, by the way.
Great game. Currie captain as well. Good option as a co-captain in there.
But in the second half, the Argentina varied up their restart, and not for the first time against South Africa, a team has been able to retain possession with a degree of consistency off those restarts.
It's one of the areas they're pretty poor on in terms of their drilling. It tends to be a bit disjointed, fragmented, and they can concede some soft scores off restart too. So that's one area of slight concern for Rassie. But also an area to target when you're looking at this how to get at this Springbok team. Certainly restart is one area that they're maybe not as sharp as they should be, but overall, the depth they have in the pack, their scrum, awesome again. Figallo, who you were calling is the last good hope of Argentina, finally keeping a scrum somewhat set at tight head. He was absolutely monstered, beasted even.
Beasted Tawira was such a perfect selection for this game. Like, they just destroyed the scrum, and their line out maul is getting so sharp now as well that they just seem very well drilled around those set piece areas, with the exception of that restart. But it's a scary combination, and Argentina, the poor Argentinians, were just not ready for it.
It's a bit of a shame for Argentina, the Pumas, to see them have such a deficiency at set piece is not encouraging in World Cup year, because basically they've had a lot of and I was watching, even I think it was Juan Imhoff doing some punditry on it, or maybe it wasn't. I can't remember who it was, but
I bet you it was Bosch.
Marcelo Bosch is exactly who it was. Talking about how much he doesn't like the fact that our scrum is so poor, and it was great to see the Jags going so well this year, but obviously it's been said many times, but Test rugby is a step up from Super Rugby and from club rugby in general, and you saw that really, they couldn't, bar one or two plays, they couldn't get a lot off with what the Jags were doing, and by and large it's because they really didn't have a base to go off. They weren't building from a set piece that was in any way solid throughout the whole tournament, and that's going to be a concern going into this World Cup. And you could see the frustration in the coaching booth. They were pretty animated at times in terms of when things were going wrong, and it's just an unusual picture for an Argentinian team to be going to a World Cup with a set piece that's this poor.
This weekend now they're going to be playing against the Springboks in Loftus in Pretoria, and this is their last game
this side of the World Cup.
So they'll have a month to soul search ahead of this week. I don't know what they're going to do. The Springboks, obviously this is more of a friendly, they have the luxury of rotating, and we had been teased by our good friend Don at Unbiased Rugby, who we'd just been on his show, that the Springboks had named their side, and we had overseen it. We hadn't seen their side, and I'm going to give it to you now, Shane. I want to
see it live. My live reaction.
To the Springbok team. They have the luxury of rotating their team, and they have done that. So Thomas du Toit is at loose head, and that's interesting because he can play tight head, and obviously that's with World Cup
permutations in mind,
which is weird because you can do both anyway.
True.
But Thomas du Toit is going in at loose head. Schalk Brits is captaining the side from hooker.
Great to see him get a run out. Awesome player, awesome legend of the game.
Vincent Koch at tight head,
another Sarri.
Haven't seen him, and
it's possible that South Africa go to this World Cup with more Sarris than England
at this stage. I mean, Vincent Koch, what a player to bring in, and we haven't seen him. They've just won the Rugby Championship, and in comes Vincent Koch.
Crazy.
Awesome. Crazy. Orji Snyman gets a game.
Yeah, not from the bench, but he's an awesome marauding talent as well.
Probably their best lock on balance.
Yeah.
Even though he has, well, maybe Etzebeth, but he hasn't got the major look in so far. And he's going to be partnered by the guy who's been frozen out despite his many qualities, Lou Diager, who's got a bit of work to do to make the squad at this point.
Even make it, yeah, because they just are swimming in locks up there. They're
crazy.
Down there.
He's like another Ian Henderson, and he just can't get into the team.
Yeah.
He's a very fine player. At number 6, brace yourself, buddy. Sia Khaleesi. Not captaining, bizarrely. He will be the captain going into it.
Sure.
They're giving it to Scott Brits.
So that's
Sia Khaleesi starting for the Boks.
Well, he got back for the Western Province last week in the Currie Cup and got like a solid 50 to 60 minute shift in, and now he's back for the Boks. Just this side
awesome
of the World
news.
Cup. Great news.
And it doesn't stop coming. Elstad, your Toulouse friend, gets a game at 7.
At 7, interesting. Yeah, okay.
These guys are all scrapping now for last places in the squad.
Yeah.
And what a scrap it is. Elstad, with a phenomenal year for Toulouse, is in at 7. And then Marcel Coetzee gets the job at 8.
Okay, so that leaves a similar kind of vibe as to when they pick Francois Lowe at 8. He'll be doing a lot of the Jacqueline work, and the other boys are a bit more mobile. That's a really good balanced back row. It's exciting.
It's crazy. It's amazing to think. Everybody's changed, and it's still just insanely strong.
Yeah, awesome. That's like you'd say that's a B team.
It was so smart of them to pick the full side for the away games.
Yeah,
it was kind of a gamble.
Yeah,
because what we said at the start is if you pick your B side, you could lose at home and then go away with the strong side and still lose. But it's just paying off perfectly. Yeah. And I can't envisage them losing with that pack. The back line is Reinach at 9 getting a shout. Yankees at 10. Esterhazen and Creel in the centres, the backups.
Yeah.
And Dylan Lades gets a shot on the left wing.
Yes.
Nkosi gets another go on the right wing. He's great. And Gelant at fullback.
There you go.
So it's all changed and it's all class.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
I can't imagine the Argentinians are going to put up too much of a fight. I think this is going to be a bit of a carnival kind of festival buzz up in Loftus. Just gonna
bring the trophy home.
Score some tries, and maybe monster some scrums here or there. It'll be interesting to see. That's the front row how they go, because that's obviously got
Vincent Koch is a very good scrummager, tight head. I'm curious to see how Thomas Dutoit does
for sure, but also Scott Brits. The last time we saw him, he was retiring. And now he's back and he's in with Razzie.
You just want to see him get his hands on the ball.
Definitely, because he's got a touch of the Dane Coles about him, where he's in open space and he just makes things happen.
Player.
So this week, obviously it's less important, but it is another hit out this side of the World Cup. Very important for all those players you named, because it is really a last chance to get in Razzie's good books, because whittling a squad down to 31, has there ever been a tougher task than when it's with the Springboks, because they just have literally 50 odd players that are World Cup quality.
And he's got everything so right so far that the final 31 is going to be as good a 31-man squad as there's out there. They got it so fine-tuned, it's just going to be a scary prospect for whoever comes up against them.
For sure.
Anyway, will we move on?
We'll move on though, and congrats again to South Africa. The Springboks, champions of the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. And
the Rugby Championship is theirs finally. Enjoy it, and we'll see you at the World
deserved.
Cup.
And we'll see you at the World Cup.
So we'll move on switch up to the Northern Hemisphere. Change of gears.
Yeah,
definitely a change of gears. We're going to have to go down through the gears to maybe first or second based on last weekend's showings. But the World Cup warm-up games, or the Guinness Summer Series, if you prefer, are going on. Last week, obviously, we had ourselves, Ireland and Italy, but Wales and England played out a bit of a stop-start contest on the Sunday in Twickenham. England got the better of it. It was 33-19 in the end.
They were good for that.
They were good for that. Well, they nearly ran in a try at the very last play that was pulled out. Pulled back over a dubious enough forward pass call.
They were probably good for that.
Yeah.
They were well on top. I thought Billy Vunipola was looking great.
Yeah. Manu Tulagi off the bench.
Awesome. What a touch of the ball. Yeah. Somebody, I think it was Jim Hamilton, posted a picture on Twitter of Manu breaking away, and the picture was just in frame 11 Welshmen chasing one Manu
Tulagi, and
like the Rugby 08 graphic when you break away the whole team and just try and shut you down behind us.
Yes,
Tulagi is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And listen, England have picked their 31-man squad, and we'll get into it in a moment. We have issues with it, as we've had with selection for so long.
But one thing I don't have issues with is their first 15 are still capable of winning a World Cup.
They're very good.
And they look awesome. And conditioning wise, they look pretty right.
They did.
Whatever they've been doing pre-season wise, like if a lot of these players turned up ready and able to play the game at a reasonable. It was a lower intensity, but England were the ones who were bringing the physicality,
and
it was Wales who weren't living with it. So there's no real issues there as far as conditioning.
There were some results as well as far as performances who sort of did better than expectations. I thought Cowan Dickey was great at hooker.
Yeah.
Well worth his try. He was everywhere. Anthony Watson on the wing had a spectacular outing and really, up in my estimation, and probably what made sure that he got the World Cup squad place. He was phenomenal, and he took some magnificent high balls, and he was just everywhere.
He was unlucky for McConaughey, who had to pull out due to injury. He was meant to start, but actually
he got in the squad anyway.
Takane did really well with his chance as well. Had a really good go of it. Obviously, Elliot Daly from fullback was awesome as well. That lovely little drop goal play that he had.
He was a little cold, but that was some drop goal he kicked. In the general game, he wasn't particularly great, and it's important to mention that the game itself was played at a very low ebb and low intensity. And Wales were well off the pace,
way off the pace, which I didn't fully expect, considering all the conditioning work they've done and all the reports we've had about cryo chambers and altitude and all this. And it was surprising to me to see a few of them look physically as off as they did, and I'm specifically looking at their sixes, to be honest. I actually thought Wainwright and then Shingler, when he came off the bench, both looked a bit off to me in terms of physically. Now, that being said, a few of them, like Liam Williams, looked lean and strong and physically capable from fullback. Tipperick, in an effort where nothing was going right for Wales, he was the only one trying desperately to get plays off, and he was getting a few off. But even he'd be batting down restarts, and it would be an Englishman who got
that was hilarious. That kept happening.
He was up for every restart and doing the Kieran Reid thing of getting it back, and
his man was never there.
And I was like,
another great performance from Tom Currie for England, and them generally looking a lot more positive. From Wales's perspective, it's hard to tell because we don't know the plan that they've mapped out, but the chances are that they might have a lot of physical work done in terms of what they were trying to do in Switzerland was get themselves at a level of physical fitness where they can back themselves to go the 7 weeks, and they feel like they'll have the hard graft done, and now it's about working on ball skills and everything else. That's the optimistic view of it. But one of the more immediately alarming problems that has to be solved is what was going wrong with their set piece, which was all over the place. It's something that can be worked on in training, but is going to have to be, and especially at scrum time when your scrum goes off the rails, it can be hard to retrack it sometimes.
Very hard to get anything off, and the purchase that England got off scrum all day.
That was actually one of the, if not the biggest deciding factor, and maybe it helped Dan Cole get in their final squad, but they were all over that scrum, and there were a couple of crucial penalty decisions when the game was in the balance that went the way of England. The kick to make it 27-19 off a scrum penalty, and while the game ended up not close, a big part of the reason is because of England's dominance at scrum time.
And Billy Vunipola rampaging up the blind side off pretty much every one of them. The six, be it Wainwright or then Shingler, were both guilty of getting into little fracas with their opposite number on the binding to the scrum, and then meanwhile Billy's streaking up the wing there unmarked.
It's good work from Ludlam.
It is good work from Ludlam, to be fair, to get them biting in on such things. But then also things like the horrendous play between the whole pack. The going long was one thing they shouldn't have done off that line out, but through Alan Wynne Jones's hands and into Cowan Dickey for the softest of soft scores. There were a lot of soft scores though in this. There was one worldy of one, Gareth Davis. What a class score that was. And Wales, they do still have that capacity in them. Even they did have that period after half time where they managed to get a few sequences of play together, managed to hold the ball for a while, got a couple of tries from it as well. They did have a purple patch that would reassure you as a Welshman that we still know how to play this game. It's grand. It's just World Cup warm-up mode. You don't need to worry too much. One thing that is worrying is the injury, and that is the worst thing to take from that game. Gareth Anscombe out of the World Cup, cruciate ligament. But there's a question mark as to whether he'll be fit enough for the Six Nations next year. But he's definitely
we don't know. But the cruciate's gone is never good, and that is touch and go for the Six Nations if you do the numbers on it. It's just heartbreaking. I mean, he's been. It goes to show, I guess. First of all, just you got to say sorry to him. He's been a very honourable guy. He's conducted himself so well, and he just
really
doesn't deserve it.
It's like another great exciting player who's just not going to be at the World Cup, and that is a shame.
Right when he was coming into form, it can't imagine how much it sucks to be in that position if you're Gareth Anscombe, and heart goes out to him and wish him all the best, and hopefully he will recover and come back and continue playing Test footy in the years to come. But it goes to show the fickle nature of this game and how injuries can play a part, because this guy was a long-term plan for this World Cup. He was a project player. They brought him in. They knew that he was qualified and he was going to come into the Wales team, and put a lot of faith in him and time in him, and it was just coming good. And then all of a sudden he's completely gone, and the plan has to be something else. There has to be a plan B. It's crazy from that perspective, just how fickle this game can be.
True.
But listen, they from the bright side, Wales have backup 10s. They have Dan Biggar, who's as experienced as they come. He's not quite as good in terms of offensive footy maybe as Anscombe is in terms of distribution.
He is a playmaker. He'll make stuff happen, and he's definitely the option that they had with Anscombe on the pitch to bring Biggar off the bench to kind of settle the ship in the last quarter is something that they may still stick with. And someone like Patchell, who has been out of the team for quite a while, but was the bolter in 2018, who was a big part of their good play and their lovely attacking play there. He can slot into that Gareth Anscombe role pretty easy. He's another guy who plays fullback as well.
There's a lot of people have just completely lost faith in Rhys Patchell in the last year, and I don't for the life of me understand why. He was a great player when he wasn't concussed like he was for most of this season. And last season when the Scarlets were great, he was running the show, and he was probably a big part of the reason why.
Well, he got in. He did have one poor performance where Eddie Jones managed to make a mug of him, and they did.
Eddie Jones called him out pre-match, and then he did have a poor game. Listen, that kind of thing happens to young players, but he came then and went into the tour of Argentina and was phenomenal, and he has a great style where he takes it to the line. This brings defenders in.
That's the point I'm trying to make. If you want to replace Gareth Anscombe with a like for like, it feels like Patchell's the natural one to slot into that, and then you still have Biggar off the bench. They could do that.
I think they'll start
Biggar.
Yeah, I think they'll
change it up that way.
Not to mention Jared Evans, who has a chance of bolting into the squad if he gets a bit of a runtime and test level and lights it up. Which he's got the twinkle toes to maybe do it.
They probably will look at both of them now. With given Gareth Anscombe's injury, it'll probably mean there's starting berths coming for both Jared Evans and Patchell. Ideally, because they do need to solve the issue of, are they bringing all three of them? Are they bringing only two of them, with maybe Hadley Parks or Lee Halfpenny, I believe, floated as an idea to potentially cover 10. So they need to figure all that out in the weeks to come, and including this week. And so it'll mean more start time, and you'll get a look at these guys, and it means there are jerseys up for grabs. But I do firmly believe that Wales are more capable than most to have an injury like Anscombe's, like your incumbent 10 goes down. I think Wales, their depth is such that they can adjust and deal with
their
that.
versatility on the field. They don't lean on their 10 too much. They move it around. They shift their responsibility across the whole team. Everybody knows what their role is. But it's not in a Joe Schmidt way of you just do your role. Everybody knows what the team is trying to do. Everyone can slot in different positions. They all know how to defend. They all know how to attack when the space is there. Hadley Parks, Jonathan Davis both have boots on them. They can kick the ball if need be, if that's where the space is. They have rigid enough structures and clever plans, but they also have the license to make plays and read what's in front of them. They're a very well coached team and a very balanced team. And primed to cope with a lot of depth as well. They're primed to cope with the loss of Gareth, obviously.
I think now it comes into focus that Biggar has to be there for them for the World Cup. So maybe protecting him over the course of the next 3 games and giving a run out to both Patchell and Evans to see who is likely to partner him, because we know Biggar is a guy who you can throw into just even fresh from injury, you can throw him back into a big fixture like one of these knockout fixtures and trust him to perform, because he has done throughout his entire career for both Ospreys and for Wales.
He always shows up when the going gets tough. Dan Biggar, he's a great player, probably an underrated player. Got a very good clutch mentality. I'm a big fan. I think Wales will be okay. What do you think they're going to go with this week, and how do you think it's going to work out for them in Cardiff?
In Cardiff, I think they're probably ill-advised, but they're going to start Biggar. I would be starting Patchell, but I think they're going to start Biggar.
Really?
Why? I don't know. I just feel like the part of it's going to be that the fact that they won't want to lose this one. Because momentum isn't as important in some ways. Certainly Wales are a team that can thrive when they get a bit ahead of steam up. And back-to-back defeats to England would just not be ideal at all. That being said, I think it's a risk to do that. I would be starting Patchell is what I would be trying to do, and trying to get play a similar game as to what Anscombe wants them to do, to take it to the line and maybe link up wide with Liam Williams, who may start, but I don't know. It might be time to give Halfpenny a chance.
There's a load of guys who could be bolters in the squad who deserve a go at it.
Yeah,
get Scott Williams in, get Owen Watkin in, get Steph Evans and Hallam Amos, and yeah.
I think there's a bit of rumble that maybe Owen Lane might be starting. Was that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe. That's fine as well. Yeah. Exactly. Mix it up and get your main guys into the game. Well, not your main guys, your fringe guys rather, who could make the squad and could not. Yeah. I'd love to see James Davis get in. My sort of pro Scarlets bias is showing here, but that team in 2018 were so good. It feels strange that all of their key players are just being utterly abandoned by the test side.
Yeah,
a lot of them can still make great plays, and James Davis is one. I'd love to see him get a game
for sure.
Yeah, Jake Ball, get him into the row, maybe with Bradley Davis duking it out for the last row spot.
Yeah, because
I think they should change everything up. I really do, and they have the depth to cover it. A bit like the Springboks, it's not going to be that different with their second side. They're pretty settled. They're all in camp together. They all know what they're doing.
Yeah,
and they're not going to be any less of a physical deficiency. I think it's a World Cup
warm-up. Balancing the minutes.
It's about balancing the minutes and getting your squad right and seeing who you can pick and trust and who you can't. And that's about giving the fringe players a go, and I think they absolutely should.
Yeah.
England, likewise.
Yeah, you'd think so.
But they have their 31-man squad now, I guess.
Well, England do, for sure.
Yeah.
Wales have not made any cuts, so theirs is still quite an expansive squad, which is why rotation makes the most sense, because you still need to boil down who's actually going, and maybe he already knows that, maybe he doesn't. We don't know it for certain at all at the moment, but it seems there are some kind of prevailing winds, and it seems like there are a few kind of key men in years gone by set to miss out. You're thinking like Scott Williams seems to be not on the plane as it stands.
The Scarlets,
well, Steph Evans as well, but it's
James Davis
in the pack for sure. And even Bradley Davies, the Ospreys, 64 caps, and he probably won't be making the plane as it stands.
He's got too big a discipline issue.
He does, to be fair. Like, he actually does give away a fair few penos. But
he's been overtaken by a lot of great locks as well.
And they do have that. So to my mind, like, they probably are going to start Alan Wynne-Jones, even though that's a ridiculous thing to do.
Surely they won't. I don't think they will.
Well,
I think this is a World Cup
history
warm-up.
suggests that they're going to play their A team to try and beat England at home.
No. This doesn't matter. It matters about finding.
I agree with you. No. I would hate to see Bigger and Ken Owens and Alan Wynne-Jones and Jonathan Davies on the pitch at the same time, but they probably will be there.
I don't think so. I genuinely don't think so. I think we're going to see Scott Williams and Owen Watkin in the centre.
I would like that. We need to see who of them are going to come.
Yeah, Patchell at 10. I think we're going to see a change team. Surely. I think so. Yeah.
Hope so for their sake.
We'll probably know by tomorrow when we upload this, but hopefully...
Well, it's one of those things just with the World Cup warm-ups as they are, and the fact, I suppose, that they haven't actually narrowed their squad at all, that it's still up for grabs. There's a lot of places on that plane that are still in contention, as much as I think Wales know who their key men are, and there are a few undroppable ones who they really don't want to get injured. I'm thinking Ken Owens, Alan Wynne-Jones, at this point, Tipuric at this point for sure, Bigger now, and Jonathan Davies. And probably Liam Williams as well.
That's the spine of that team.
That is the absolute core of the team. But between that and behind that, I think there are actually quite a number. You could probably say that whole 42-man squad that they have at the moment are capable deputies and able to step up and do a job, because they're quite versatile. They have rotated their caps and their minutes very well over the last 4 years and beyond. So they are capable of adjusting very well to injury. But also just mixing things up. But it means that it makes whittling it down to 31 quite a mammoth task whenever he gets around to, or whenever Gatland wants to try and do that. It's a tough one, and there's going to be some really, really quality players, like really elite players, who are going to miss out on the plane because Wales just have that many.
I think by contrast, I think what Gatland's doing makes more sense, keeping the squad together, keeping everyone informed on what the group is doing, rather than cutting off the squad now with loads of warm-up games to go and putting your primary guys at risk of injury in a bunch of games that don't make any sense.
Yeah,
which is the latest strange move from Eddie Jones.
This is
he has just this great team, and he's, well, I guess the main headline is that Ben Spencer, who was the best scrum half in Europe this year.
Yeah, probably.
Gone, another of the best in Europe in his position, who won't make the England team.
Yeah, which now brings down the number of Saris in the back line to 1.
Owen Farrell. Yeah.
Which is actually the same number of Saris that Wales have in their back line.
Liam Williams.
There you go.
And Scotland.
And Scotland have the same number of Saris in the back line as England.
Yeah.
That's a funny old thought, considering Saris were the best team in Europe this year.
Yeah, very strange. I know, like I sort of have that club mindset, but it's Saracens have had a lot of great. There's a lot of great players, be they Saracens or not, who haven't made this team. That said, it's a great squad. Obviously, we can't look past the Vunipola brothers and the Tuolangi's and the Farrells, and just how exciting this team is.
Maybe Harry Williams is very unlucky to be missing out
at tight head.
Very
for Dan
strange
Cole as well. The Saracens backs and the Exeter props
are missing from this squad, and Exeter probably did have the best scrum in the Premiership last year.
This is a great squad. It could be so much better. And it's a bit like the South Africa situation that we talk about, where Rassie has this big headache of having just such a player pool to pick from of quality players.
That you're always going to have people disagree and different combinations.
But Rassie, I think by everyone's estimation, has gotten just about every call 100% correct and has found his best 15 to 23 and is now going to find the best possible 31. Yeah. Where Eddie Jones is missing out on loads of guys. He's missing out on loads of talent. Yeah. That said, the team that's playing, that he has picked, are still great.
And still could go all the way and win a World Cup. Like that's the positioning they're in. Like they have that much talent that they can afford to make some mistakes in selection and still have a world-class team at their disposal.
I like the call of Lewis Ludlam in the back row the more I look at it. Yeah. Currie and Underhill as sevens.
Ludlam as a solid six.
Ludlam and Wilson as six, and then Billy Vunipola at 8. I mean, that's balance. It's very good. The locks, obviously, as we've gone through, are brilliant. Mako is fantastic as well, and then you've Cowan Dickey and Jamie George and Hooker. A little concern about a tight head with Sinclair and Cole. I would say that's a concern position. Just because Sinclair's so ill disciplined and Cole is sort of, he had a good game at the week, don't get me wrong, he scrummed well, but Harry Williams would have been preferable for me.
Maybe,
But that said, that's a phenomenal pack that's so physical. They're going to be, if they're at all right, they're going to be brilliant, and it still seems strange that they're going to have to pick from this narrow group of 31 for this game.
The next few games. 3 games very much back to back, so it's going to be attritional, and people are probably going to go down. They probably won't come through it entirely unscathed. So it does seem a strange call to be naming your 31-man squad after the first warm-up game.
I 1 week into a 3-week block of games. Yeah,
I don't understand how Eddie Jones's process is, but I can't.
But he's got a great team, and he does have a
wonderful team,
a great record as well. Not to mention.
That being said, what do you fancy for this warm-up game? Do you expect the intensity to lift a little bit? And if so, do you expect the home team to win again?
I expect Wales. I expect both of those things to happen. I think England will pick a more experimental side. Like, you might see Billy Vunipola step out, but Itoje and Farrell come in. I think they won't pick either a full B team or a full A team. They'll go for a little mixture again, but they'll try and get Farrell back in and everybody else. And listen, like I say, Wales, the home team, are going to win, but when Farrell and Itoje are on the pitch, Owen Farrell in particular, he can run a show.
Things can happen,
especially if his pack get on top. But that said, I think Wales
be looking for a bit more physicality from them. They'll definitely be looking for more line speed and defence.
This is why I like the idea of picking those fringe guys, is because I think they're going to give a bit more. There's more at stake. It's not a question of not getting injured. It's a question of playing your way onto the plane, which becomes its own motivator. And I think it would be a great sign for Wales if they were to pick those guys. First of all, it would ease the pressure on them, because if they lose, it's a B team that lost.
Sure.
And then second of all, if they win with the B team, they're buzzing, like England are right now. So in terms of what's going to happen, I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
It's not as much about the results. I expect Wales to probably show a bit more and nick a win, but I do think it'll probably be a bit more a bit more of the same in terms of a bit sloppier than we expect from both these teams. But I would like to see a bit more physicality from Wales. That's the one thing I would like to see, is more of their forwards being in it for the fight, being up out of the line, defensive line quickly, and sure up that set piece a bit. All those things need to be ticked off.
Rob Evans, who I cursed last week, but they were wise enough not to pick, although maybe if they'd picked him, Gareth Anscombe wouldn't have got injured. Rob Evans should come back in and
get a hit out.
Exactly. And probably would fix their problems at scrum,
hopefully so,
although not the problem with the scrum without Rob Evans, which is its own problem. That said, it was only a pre-season game, and maybe they'll just solve the issues of the scrum with a bit of 8-man shoving and just low body positions, simple things
done well. That's what they're all trying to work on. But yeah, so we'll move on to the other warm-up game, which is they're going to look very pre-season because it's the first time we've seen either of them. It's France and Scotland. First time seeing them since the Six Nations. And France have not named their team yet as we film this, which is Wednesday night, evening come night. But Scotland have named their match day 23. And it's close to their first
it's pretty much their full team.
There's a few notable absentees. Obviously, Finn Russell is not being played, so it's Adam Hastings. So just to go through it, number 1 we have James Batty, Stuart McNally, captain Simon Bergen, and then in the rows we have Ben Toulis and Gilchrist, that Edinburgh engine room. And then John Barkley is credited as vice captain from 6 as well. Jamie Ritchie at 7 and Josh Strauss at 8.
Great.
So similar to what they were doing at the during the Six Nations
without Hamish Watson.
Without Hamish Watson and with John Barkley back in.
Jamie Ritchie's a great player.
Oh, he did a lot of work during the Six Nations. He got a lot of good experience in the absence of a few other heads like John Barkley in that Six Nations. So he'll definitely be a part of their World Cup campaign. And then the back line we have Ali Price, Adam Hastings, Duncan Taylor and Hugh Jones in the centres, Byron McGuigan and Darcy Graham on the wings, and Stewie Hogg at full back. Yeah,
it's all kinds of interesting, isn't it? It's good. It's got promise. I think the halfbacks will be very interesting in particular to see how they go. They obviously finished last season in flying form. Ali Price and Adam Hastings, they were great. We've seen at the beginning of last season just how ropey they can be when things go wrong.
True.
So it's probably wisdom in getting them out and warm and early, so that
it's away from home. They can it's in Nice in France, which is like going to be lovely, but it's good to get them a run out somewhere and just
playing rugby, getting a ball in the hand. It's
definitely a backline designed to attack, isn't it, with Price and Hastings in there, and then obviously Hugh Jones from 13 with Stewie Hogg in the wide channels. That's a backline that they're going to want to try and spread the ball to.
Totally.
Like they're going to try and want to move this French pack around a bit. And France, by contrast, we were actually doing a bit of research on France. They did name a 31-man squad a while ago. This was like around a month ago. They named a 31-man squad with 6 supplementary players, I guess, extras. Which is an interesting way to do it, obviously, but it means they're working from 37. It's a bit of a tighter pool than other teams have opted for initially, with a lot of other kind of Six Nations teams going 40 plus big squads.
Right.
But one thing that you do note just looking through it is, like, yes, there are a few except players from across the top of tours, but there is very much a true line of Clermont and Toulouse axis throughout. And that's important because they were the finalists and they were the 2 deserving finalists in the top of tours. The best thing about French rugby last year was both of those teams, and it's good that that's reflected in the national side. And it was being more so, the Six Nations was the first time really that any of those Toulouse guys got in, based on obviously Toulouse came out of nowhere and lit up last season in club rugby and in Champions Cup footy, and then the top tours went and won it. So it's good to see them peppered throughout the squad. One of your favourite players, Sofiane Gatoun, didn't get a look in the Six Nations, but is now in there.
He's a guy who with Fofana could form one of the most exciting centre pairings in world rugby, and their battle with the Tuilagi and Slade, and then Orlando and De La Fuente is actually, that whole centre dynamic that's going to go on in that group is one of the most exciting things about the upcoming World Cup, certainly in pool play. There's a load of guys I'm really excited to see get a head out. Obviously we don't know who they're going to go for from the squad, but in terms of exciting players, I'd love to see Camille Shah get a go at hooker.
He's a barnstormer. He absolutely is.
Lovely player. Felix Lambie in the row is thrilling to watch.
He was one of their finds of the Six Nations. He has a great work ethic. He's a little bit like a James Ryan type player. He does just put himself around for the whole time that he's on the pitch. If it's 60 or 80 minutes, he'll just keep trucking along the whole time and make play after play. It's good because their incumbent in there in Van Maheen is probably like the opposite inclined. Will make that the occasional play, but might take a few off.
Bernard Leroux seems to be covering lock as well, which is interesting, and then obviously Gabriel Ag as well. Aldrit and Ituria in the back row are my pick of them. My favourites, obviously, Picamole is always a show-stopping player as well.
But I think Ituria has been great for them, for that French team, for quite a while. He's been one of the few workhorses in that pack. Even though the pack's been constantly rotating, he tends to do a really good shift. Sometimes he's named at 7, and he's not really an out-and-out 7, but he plays a great game from there. Gives them an extra line-out option when he's in the back row as well. I have a lot of time for Ituria, to be honest. I think he's a solid operator. And to be honest, their pack looks really good then when you start zooming in, and when you look at the props they have, obviously Jefferson Poirot and Priso, in there, but then also you have
Rabah Slimani is aging like a fine wine.
Yeah, and then Bamba as well. Demba Bamba is an exciting prospect off the bench even.
Yeah.
And they just have some depth there, to be honest, and they're going to try and target that scrum because their pack are big.
The Argentinian scrum,
for sure.
You take your parity against England, you take what you can get against Mako Vunipola. I would pick Slimani against Mako though, just because that height difference could be awkward for Mako.
And I rate props who have been around the block a bit and have a bit of wiliness to them. They can maybe school a guy who's all form and all kind of physicality coming into it.
Rabah's great. I would absolutely get him in there. Their halfbacks in terms of scrummy, they have phenomenal depth in terms of Dupont followed by Machno followed by Saran.
Three awesome little playmakers,
especially when you consider Dupont can cover 10,
which he probably will.
All three of them on the World Cup playing.
Yeah.
Straight on the World Cup.
The other two then covering 10 is Camille Lopez and Ntamak, which is that illustrative of that Clermont-Toulouse line that you have.
It's an interesting one because Lopez has to play himself into a bit more form, and Ntamak needs a bit of game time at 10.
It does.
So I'm curious to see what they go for, what Brunel goes for at out half, because both there's arguments for both. The centres, as we say, Gutoun, one of the best 13s in the world, phenomenal offensive player.
Yeah,
like really, the in terms of reporting on Toulouse, it's been sort of your Ntamak, Dupont, Ramos and Cheslin circus.
Yeah.
When quietly Gutoun has been the best player in the club for some time, and
he's just link man with everything.
He's been running that show, running that backline.
Yeah, no, it'd be exciting. I would be very, very annoyed if we don't see him get run out that he deserves, because he hasn't been getting it so far.
Gutoun and Fofana.
And then that's leaving out Fiku and Dumeru, who are also in the squad, but are good cover there as well, but not at that elite level. And then there's Pinot in there as well, who's moved to wing and is going to be starting winger for them. He's capable of playing 13 as well and doing a good job there, but I like him at 14. And it frees you up then to pick any one of Raka, Ramos, Rates, who's also he's one of the supplementary players named, but he's not currently in he can squeeze himself in there, but he's an exciting player too. And it's just
interesting that Teddy Thomas hasn't been forgiven.
He hasn't been forgiven, and to be honest, I don't hate it. I know he's an absolute showstopper, but I don't like just the way he plays, the Z-bonus of it all, the way he plays the game, the way he plays on the other side of the ball. His defence is shocking. Most of the time, and some of the defensive plays that come out of him and have come out of him in Six Nations have been costly, have been very costly, and he's caused Racing a few games in that sense as well. So as much as the razzle dazzle when he has the ball in hand and he can ruin people is great,
Brice Toulon getting no love either.
Like what Pinot brings them from that wing is infinitely more valuable than what Thomas was. You're
probably right, and then probably I would like, we don't know what they're going to go for this week. Obviously they could go experimental, they could go full strength, but it's going to be exciting to see if Raka gets a go. He's a guy to watch. Yet another in the long line of Fijian class at the wing position, and Raka's no different. He's a scary prospect for any
physically
defense.
He'll run over you, or you'll get the hands free, or both, and it's good to see. He's an exciting prospect, and on balance it's a properly good 31 squad, and then 37 beyond that. Like France, write them off at your peril. I know they've been at sea for the last however many years in terms of their contributions to Six Nations and such, but in a World Cup year I'd be fearful of them. And certainly in Nice on day one of the warm-ups, I expect a low intensity contest. I
expect maybe low intensity, but both sides will
try to play. So I'm expecting a bit of chaotic quick play followed probably by an error and a scrum.
It's good to see Duncan Taylor back in the 12 for Scotland. Obviously I think Sam Johnson is comfortably the incumbent,
but nice little run out for him.
Hasn't been in the team for a while that I can remember, and it's definitely good to see him in there. He also likes to see Blair Kinghorn get a run out from the bench.
And similarly George Horn. A bit of news on Scotland. Townsend actually during the week released 4 players from his extended squad, so he's whittling it down, and those players who are missing out are Kyle Stein, Henry Purgos, Gary Graham and Nick Grigg, who I think they're all a little unlucky, but
Nick Grigg out for the likes of Duncan Taylor probably, and it makes sense if you're keeping Hugh Jones in there. You don't need Nick Grigg.
It's probably true. And despite the fact that Grigg is awesome and does everything that's asked of him and is a really industrious player, probably doesn't fit into what Scotland are all about when Finn Russell's at the helm and they're flinging the ball around when they're at their best.
He's just a little too soft. Just a little bit too soft. But that said, this is going to be an exciting game. I'm looking forward to it. I think unlike you, I think it's actually maybe going to be played at quite a pace, and maybe
I think it will be
tri-filled and crazy.
I would like to see it successful enough, but I'm expecting it to be attempted to be played at pace, followed by an error, followed by a scrum, followed by a French penalty, followed by up the touchline, touch of the top 14 field.
No Willem Nell in there to hold up the Scottish scrum this week.
That's true,
so,
which could be
Simon
very, very
Bergen has it all to do.
Yeah, well, it's a good test for those other rows. Like, it's a good hit out for both of these teams, because I think, unlike some of the criticisms we've had of other teams, certainly Six Nations, I think Wales are probably not preparing best for the challenges ahead by playing these, like England and Ireland. They're going to be playing the Wallabies. Why would you play England and Ireland? Both of these teams, like France, have to prepare for Argentina. I think this is a good preparation for that. Similarly, Scotland have to prepare for Japan, and I think France offer closer to home, offer good income from a fixture like this, but also a similar kind of image to what's going to be presented.
Quick free-flowing attack in open field. Scotland are going to learn a lot about their capacity on a scramble D level to defend when a classy side has an overlap against you. How is your scramble D? And that's something that they're going to learn the hard way against Japan if they don't learn it now. So definitely good in that department.
Yeah, for both sides, I think. As far as predictions are concerned, not that the result is anywhere near the most important thing. I suspect probably France will just edge it in terms of
boring home team call. That's what you've done every time.
Oh, that's what happens in World Cup warm-up games.
I'm going to say Scotland.
You always say Scotland.
I do.
Yeah. But yes, Scotland. Come on, Scotland.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it, but no, I'd also, to be honest, I'd love to see both of these teams fight.
I don't even really think Scotland will win. I just don't think that it really matters.
It doesn't matter. I'd love to see people like Gattoon get on the pitch. That's what I'd like.
Yes,
like
that's
to see.
more important.
You know?
Listen, if France play their best team and they play their best, and Scotland play their best team and they play their best, France are going to have the edge. But I don't know who's going to pick what. Well, we know what the Scotland team is, we don't know what the French team is going to be, and we certainly don't know how they're going to play. So it's a game of learnings, and it'll also be just entertainment. It's a good game of rugby between two open-minded, spirited teams who play attacking footy.
Hopefully it'll be a better spectacle than probably the two warm-up games we saw so far. But expect and forgive a bit of lower intensity than we're used to seeing from these sides, but that's to be expected. We're
going to give a mention to Italy against Russia before we wrap up the show. I'm not going to get to see this one, unfortunately, because it's not broadcast in Ireland, but I think it's a game that's going on this week. Italy obviously last week finally did the good variation of getting Carlo Canna in there and giving him some minutes. He's an out half who can kick the ball from hand, which helps them. I thought he looked really well.
And the other thing I was going to say was Benvenuti at 13, although a few loose plays here and there, looks just physically tougher than Campagnaro, who's the incumbent there.
Yes,
and just Zanon sometimes, but he was offering a bit more in defence. He was actually getting some hits off against the Irish, which is good to see from them in the centres. So little aspects of positivity.
I would love to see Italy go with Canna at 10 and Tommy Allen at 12 and Benvenuti at 13 and Campagnaro on the wing.
I think that actually Hayward at fullback, and who else on the other wing? Minozzi on the other wing.
Yeah, or Hayward on the other wing and Minozzi at fullback. Exactly, that's an exciting backline, and that's the kind of team that could do things. Just because Tommy Allen, while he is a good distributor, is not a kicker for football and therefore shouldn't be a 10, but should be in the team because he's pretty good.
Runs the ball very damn well, takes the contact. He's only shades of, but a bit about Pollard in terms of how he plays the game from 10, in terms of how committed he is to take no shade of Pollard. No, there is, but you're right in saying he just doesn't kick the ball enough, and it makes them predictable. Whereas Canna probably kicks it a bit too much, arguably. But he's a bit more of a balance.
I like the idea that Tommy can slot in at 10 sometimes, and you can move Canna outside. And I just think that's a good variation. They tried it with McKinley, in the game against Ireland, but their problem is that McKinley is just
been wildly out of form,
completely out of sorts, and has been for a long while now.
It's true. Giving away kicks from charge downs and such. It's all a bit of a poor picture.
Their back row is great. Negri came on last week and was huge.
Was awesome.
I'd be excited to see Bramstein get a hit out, and I think there's
Pellegrini's great too. Like, they actually have real options at the back row, and it's a question mark as to whether Parise is in or out.
Parise will be in because he's captain, and the thing about them for this World Cup is that it's so low stakes because they can't beat what's above them and they'll hammer what's below them.
Yeah.
So they're in an awful middling position where this World Cup isn't going to be of too much interest for them.
The worst they can do is have a calamity and blow it against Canada or something, and then they're not even in automatic qualification. But I don't think
do that.
Canada and Namibia are their two fixtures.
Both sides.
I think actually the game that they're playing this weekend against Russia will be more challenging for them in some ways than both of those teams, because Russia have offered a bit more in terms of in their Rugby Europe form. They did get stuffed a bit by Georgia, but they put teams like Germany and stuff to the sword effectively.
They played that competition out in South America with Namibia in it. It was a mad old competition. But they got a couple of wins in that, which was nice to see. So obviously they've been working away, and I think actually this fixture, Italy against Russia, is a good one just for both sides. I think it's going to teach Italy a little bit about where they stand in the tier 2 reckonings. Are they going to be able to just swiftly put this team aside, which they should do, and it's going to teach Russia a little bit about what's coming, because they obviously haven't got much tier 1 experience.
No, they don't. And Russia are at the bottom of quite a ridiculous pool in terms of like Ireland are at the top of it, Scotland, Japan, danger, and Samoa as well. Like
no easy games.
All of them playing proper competitive rugby when you're getting PNC and Six Nations. It's tough for Russia. So this is a good hit out against Italy to get them primed for it. And similar to what we were saying about the last one, just makes a lot of sense from both perspectives. Let's have it. The shame about it not being broadcast is the only thing.
Be nice to see it, but unfortunately not. And
also just curiosity, reffed by Carl Dixon, who I don't actually know. Another ref that I have never seen or have no opinion on. So it's the unknown game, but it's good for both teams. So I suppose we'll move on. Do you have anything else to say on that? Or
no, nothing at all.
Okay, well then we'll finish up with the rugby news of the week, which is our go-to finishing segment. And there was a bit of news this week. We'll get through most of it, but I think the first one, which is the most prevalent, is that there have been new laws approved for trial.
Starting next year, nothing in the World Cup, don't panic.
Yes, indeed. It's not going to affect the World Cup, because that would be a bit bonkers introducing it at this juncture. But it's 6 new laws, 7 if you count it. There's a sevens law as well, but that's more of a technical law where they're allowing 1 extra sub in extra time in sevens, which is
outrageous.
Oh yeah, absolutely ridiculous. No, fine. But the main one is the 50-22 kick, which we were looking at a few weeks ago. It's the idea that if you kick from within your half and it goes dead inside the opposition's 22, you retain the line out, retain the possession from the ensuing line out. I'm correct in saying that's paraphrasing the law.
The idea behind it being that more sides are going to kick the ball, defences are going to have to drop a few guys back to cover that space.
You're going to see less of this 13 men in the line and only 1 or 2 in the back line.
Take a little bit of intensity out of the defence, a little bit of intensity out of the tackle area, bring more kicks and set pieces into the game, so you've got fewer contacts and breakdowns. All things that they're trying to do to get rugby a little bit closer back to where it was in the 90s kind of era, when there were just way fewer breakdowns per game than there currently are, because the game has gotten so damn intense. And obviously that's where injuries and concussions and the like are coming from.
And a few things that I think will be knock-on effects. I expect to see a return of the spiral kick as a result of this. I'm all for this law change. I actually think it could be a really good thing.
It works in league,
it works in league. They have the same approach, but things like the spiral kick, which was such a stalwart in the 90s, like everyone would kick that way. Now no one seems to, because they're more targeting kind of keeping air on the ball or being a bit more straight with it. But one way to access the space quicker, a spiral is just going to get to where it's going quicker than
one of those
the
little
end
tipping Roland O'Gara kicks, and that was so
fizz into
perfect.
The corner. And we're going to hopefully see playmakers from 10 trying to do that a bit more with this new law.
Jeez, it's come a decade too late for Raj, but he would have just owned the game with this rule, because the way he just floated the ball into the corners, if they got an attacking line out off that, they just win everything. But it's nice. It's cool. It's definitely going to be a different look. I'm glad that it's trialed. It's not coming straight in.
Coming straight in, and that's the same with all of these.
I'm excited to see what it looks like.
There's also the second law is that there's a high tackle technique warning, which apparently has been successfully trialled at the World Rugby Under-20s Championship for the last 2 years, reducing the instances of concussion by more than 50%. So there's that, and that's coupled with reducing the tackle height to the waist, which is one that has been talked about, floated for a while. People are going mental about it. It's approved for closed trials. Basically, it means you're forcing the tackle height to be lower, near the hips. I am sceptical about this one more so than anything else. I feel like especially coupled with the 50-22 kick, if the wingers are going to be dropping in the defensive line, and it's just going to be fewer players in the defensive line, and you're only allowed to tackle low, you have to be able to stuff the offload some way. Like, if you're playing against Fiji and you can only have close to 10 to 12 players in your defensive line and you can only tackle them at the waist, how are you ever going to stop them?
Am I right saying, I don't know, so forgive my innocence, but I thought I could have sworn I heard somewhere that most injuries in the tackle area happen to the tackler.
Yeah, not the tackled.
Yeah, so getting your head down near the knees isn't necessarily going to reduce concussion.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure they've done a lot of work into how it is possibly going to reduce concussion and the value of just getting the height down in general. But from a rugby perspective, yeah, you're right that there's a basketball potential there. You kind of have to be able to attack the ball for the game to work now, just the nature of the athletes.
It seems like the kind of thing that the Aussie commentators will love. You'll have no more choke tackles, you'll have no more double tackle stuff in the offloads.
Yeah, but then again, the idea of the ignominy of good hits being punished with cards is not something that they're on board with.
They're trying to like to,
I don't know that it makes any difference that it's the hip rather than the chest.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't even got, like, they were trialling the nipple line law, and we haven't even got that through at test level yet, or at full professional 15s men's rugby. We haven't seen the nipple line law be trialled, which is a little goofy, like that the nipples are for some reason the point. But like, it shouldn't really be around the ball carrying area, around the chest.
You need to be able to target the ball.
You need to be able to target the ball, and you shouldn't be able to go near the head. And I think that's the middle ground, but it seems weird that we didn't even get to trial their nipple line law before we're now moving it down to the waist. I don't know that this midriff area makes any difference. It just
it does. I do see crazy basketball in the future of this game.
I just don't think it's going to work. No. I think the backlash is going to be too much. Most players are against it. Everybody's against it. It's like their nation's championship. It's just our nation's league. It's just too unpopular to go through.
And then the other, just clean house, the other few laws that are in there: the ability to review a yellow card when a player is in the sin bin for dangerous foul play. And the rationale for that, to ensure players who are guilty of serious foul play do not escape with a yellow card when they deserved red.
It's pointless. Well, I think it's pointless because who's reviewing it?
I don't know.
It's got the same guys who made the call
in the first place.
Yeah,
seemingly. The other addition here is an introduction of an infringement, be that penalty or free kick, limit for teams, which is something that's been spoken about before, but in a different context. Basically, it's once the team has reached the limit, mandatory yellow card is given to the last offending player as a team sanction.
That's a good rule.
That is a good rule. And it's something that I think Brian O'Driscoll has brought up in different contexts, but in terms of he would be giving cards straight away if you are in your 22 under your goal line, infringe, the ref says advantage, and then another breakdown happens and you infringe again, that offence should be straight yellow card. And that's something they're not bringing in here, but it's a good call too.
What's interesting about it though is my initial instinct was that's fairer, because at the moment it's pretty arbitrary with refs just deciding when it's too many and when it's not. But actually, now that I've had a moment to reflect on it, I think removing context from that discussion actually might not be the best thing. Because it's just a set number of penalties, but it doesn't take into account, was that penalty in your 22? Was it a cynical one? Now, I understand that there's going to be other reasons to give yellow cards, but I feel like with this rule in place, referees are going to be less likely to give penalties for cumulative offences, or yellow cards for cumulative offences, until that benchmark has been reached. And I also don't know what the ruling would be around it. Like, if a prop goes down 3 times at the scrum and then gets sin binned, does that counter then come back to 0?
I don't know.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
All of these are approved for trial anyway. We'll see how they go. And then the other thing is the awarding of a goal line dropout to a defending team when an attacking player who has brought the ball into the in goal is held up.
Ooh.
Goal line dropout to the defending team.
That's interesting, as opposed to a scrum 5.
As opposed to a scrum 5. To reward good defence and promote a faster rate of play.
Georgia.
Approved for closed trial in the National Rugby Championship in Australia.
That's a disaster for Georgia.
Yeah, well, it doesn't affect them yet, because it's only approved for closed trial in the National Rugby Championship
in Australia. But should they love it over in Australia?
They will, of course, love it in Australia. Held up 22. Interesting.
Held up, no, goal line dropout.
Or goal line dropout even, sorry, yes. Yeah. Not 22, goal line dropout,
which I've never seen the like of.
No, how's it going to work? Interesting.
Hit the crossbar.
Oh, no. An absolute horrendous play from underneath the post. But yeah, so that's another interesting one. It definitely will speed things up in terms of like you're not resetting scrum.
Well, it's just going to force teams to be a little more accurate in that area, and it's going to discourage the kind of attack that Ireland and Georgia pioneer around those try lines.
It's pick and jam. The
Exeter play.
Yes.
Because Georgia will just trot over the line just to get the attacking scrum.
Yes, indeed.
We don't want to try to score just yet.
Yeah.
We want to get that attacking scrum. That more than anyone else, that's going to affect Georgia.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't go in because I like the Georgians.
Yes, no, it's true. Well, it's definitely all of these seem to be skewed in from a mindset of let's get the ball in play, let's get it moving around a bit more. The exception, I think, of the 50-22, which is the only good one that I can think of in terms of mixing it up.
It's all about reducing breakdowns.
Yeah.
Everything that they're trying to do at the moment is reducing the number of tackles and reducing the number of breakdowns that happen in a game.
Joe Schmidt's Ireland are not helping in that.
Joe Schmidt's Ireland are not helping, but apparently that number has skyrocketed since the 90s.
Yeah.
Obviously you don't have as many knock-ons, you don't have as much set pieces, don't have as much kicking, and what's happening instead is just a load more phase play, and that the tackle area is where most concussions happen, and that's their primary concern.
There you go.
But it is, in a warped kind of a way, trying to mould it back to the game that it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
But some of these will work and some won't. It remains to be seen.
For sure. Yeah, but though that is the big news in terms of what's going to be affecting rugby on a global scale, but not for the World Cup, so no concerns there.
Yeah.
And then in other news, yes, Ireland's World Cup squad is affected. We've had, obviously, Carbery is out for 4 to 6 weeks with that ligament injury. He's probably going to be on the plane. He's certainly over in Portugal with the lads now.
He's a doubt for Scotland and Japan in that initial block, but they're going to bring him on the plane anyway because he'll probably be right come knockout stage. So they're just going to take that gamble, which makes all the sense in the world. When he went down, I was at the outside of Keane Healy, there was no man in the squad who it would have been worse to see go down. He's Ireland's best hope, himself and Gary Ringrose, at getting some attacking fluidity going in the wide channels. And it would be very pleasing to see him back and fit by the time the World Cup comes around.
For sure. But in other news, Haley, Cooney and Bealham are all cut from the squad.
Haley and Bealham were expected. Cooney's a bit of a shock.
There was a bit of conjecture about him maybe being brought as the third 9, but also as 10 cover to free us up to pick only 2 10s.
It's to be honest with you, it's a strange call. Listen, we weren't in the camp, so it's hard to say, but it doesn't feel like he deserves that. Joe hasn't liked him, and he's gone instead for 3 clones of one another at scrum half. We just have Murray, Marmion, worse Marmion, Luke McGrath, instead of someone who can actually change the game and add a bit of pace in John Cooney. So very strange.
Yeah,
I think
I'd say Marmion adds a little bit of pace when he comes on.
I would think that Cooney would be in for Luke McGrath.
Yeah, that would have been the argument. Yeah, but apparently not.
No, he's gone anyway, so that's a bit of a mad call, but there it is. It's there for now. We obviously didn't get a chance to cover the Ireland game, but we'll talk about them in a bit more depth in advance of the England game
for sure week. Yes, the big news from it was just that Joey Carbery was down and out and is out for 4 to 6 weeks, so it's touch and go. It's not as bad as what happened to Anscombe, of course, which is the other bit of news I have here, which we mentioned earlier in the show, but Anscombe out of the World Cup with a cruciate ligament injury. The worst story to come from those World Cup games so far.
Not terrific. Horrific. Yeah, terrible news.
More terrible news. Sorry, the bad news keeps coming for the next few points. But former Leicester Tigers and Bath winger stroke scrum half Steve Booth is dead at 42. Died this morning. This is Wednesday, and apparently from a suspected heart attack, although that's not confirmed. Obviously, no post-mortems happened yet, but very, very young and very sad.
Very sad.
There were a few of his Leicester teammates and his Bath teammates were tweeting out.
I can't say I knew of him, but I didn't know him really that well or anything about him. But other than
that, is tragic.
That just sucks. That's awful news. And best wishes, obviously, to those who knew him and his family and friends.
Because you never want to see that. And 42 is far too young. John, a servant of the game, gone. So that's a deep shame, but R.I.P. And then other somewhat bad news, but nothing like it, no degree of severity, but Swys de Bruin, 59, he steps down as Boks Springbok attack coach effective immediately.
Interesting,
citing personal and medical reasons as the reason behind it. And like I think Razzie made a response to it saying like obviously wish your family very well. We have contingencies in place. This is a loss that we can allow for, is what he was saying.
I believe they have a backs coach as well as an attack coach, but
right.
I'm not sure on that. They're actually pretty well stacked in terms of backroom staff. They, I think, have an excess. There's some rumours going around in the Irish media that Felix Jones, who's just left Munster, might be given an opportunity.
I'd be shocked to see that happen.
Well, apparently he got offered an opportunity as skills coach when Rossi first got the job last year.
I'd still be shocked by it. Like, so much has happened since then.
Well, he's not going to get like the free reign of running the backline, but in as a little bolter who might add one or two concepts. You don't know.
Maybe. Stranger things have happened. It's definitely a big loss. It's unfortunate for the Boks, but then the Boks are flying so high that a bit of momentum knocking couldn't hurt them. But yeah, no, we feel bad for
him. And obviously, wishing him all the best. I don't know what the details
of the full story at all, but obviously do wish him all the best.
Yeah.
And yeah, I suppose we'll move on from that. It's just some transfer news in the Super Rugby Stakes. The Hurricanes have managed to sign Wes Huijsen, re-sign Wes Huijsen, Peter Amonga Jensen, and Ben May as cover till 2021. So that's
it's always good to see guys staying on, and Wes Huijsen in particular is an awesome player.
Yeah. Umanga Jensen's great as well. Great value in the commentary.
And listen, Ben May has been a stalwart for forever as well, holding up that scrum. So
it's not all gone doom and gloom since Bodie's gone. Not abandoned ship at all.
Geordie stayed on and steadied the ship.
Yeah, so a few more players commit themselves to the Canes.
Yeah,
and then just a shout out. It's not rugby, but it is Christian Wade. We have to give a shout out because he made his debut in NFL preseason for the Buffalo Bills. First play, first touch was a 65-yard worldie of a touchdown.
Yep, TD run.
Love to see
it. He's like he was always a running back. He's a brilliant attacking player. He cut Leinster's defence to ribbons, so the Colts were never going to worry him.
No, this is
you know, he's always a lightning quick, elite level attacking rugby player for sure.
Step a man in a phone booth.
Step in a phone. That's the difference. Like he's well as the gas. He had vision and pace, and he could pick a line. And all of the qualities that are useful in a running back. So I'm very excited.
Hope the Bills put more faith in him and keep him going. But
I love the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm absolutely going to be rooting for the Bills as a second team as long as Wade is in town.
Yeah, until they cut him, in which case I hope they lose the rest of the fixtures. I'm rooting for rugby players to make a splash over in the NFL, and he's definitely one who has all the hallmarks of a proper running back
and deserves everything that he gets for success-wise.
Yeah, because he's taken a massive leap of faith to leave Wasps, recognising that he's not getting the look in that he probably was due and deserved when he was in his prime for Wasps, never getting a look in for England. And now he's completely changed code, changed sport, gone through the combine and the whole process that the NFL, vigorous process that he's has to go through, and he's appeared on pre-season and lit it up with his first touch. Fair play to him on the play.
Awesome.
Wasps haven't been the same since he left.
No,
it's truth.
They haven't.
So I had to give him a shout out, even though it's not strictly speaking rugby, but close enough. And then in other news, we're going to just give a brief update on the Currie Cup, which is going on as well. Obviously, the Mitre 10 Cup did start as well. Which we just didn't see any of this week. So
I can give you some results if you want some results.
Go give us some results from the Mitre 10.
Northland beat Southland 27-17 away from home. It was a 28-all draw between Auckland and North Harbour. 45-8 win for Tasman over Wellington.
Right.
Counties Manukau, who had Sonny Bill Williams in the team, 29 points to Taranaki's 34. Waikato 31, Canterbury 28. Up the Chiefs.
Yeah, up the Chiefs.
Bay of Plenty 50, Otago 7. Manawatu 13, Hawke's Bay 31.
There you go.
That's the opening round.
Well, I do like a bit of Ottawa, but I'm kind of rooting for the Tasman because Jimmy Lowe was a Tasman.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So come on, Jimmy Lowe.
They gave Wellington a right battering in the opening round.
Fair play
to them.
Yeah. Obviously the Mitre 10 Cup, we probably get to see a little bit more of it as the weeks go on, and we'll keep it in this other news segment. But also the Currie Cup, where it has been the last little while. Hotting up. But first going to give a brief mention to, in the lower tier of the Currie Cup, the Jaguares 15, who have just been included the first time, put 122 points on Valka to their 19. So that's a bit of a shellacking, and you'd suspect they're primed to come up and take the place of probably the Pumas as it stands, but could be the Bulls if they slip up too much. But they'll be in.
No, we're not wishing that on
I'm not wishing that at all. I hope it's the Pumas. Yeah, the Jaguars replacing the Pumas has a funny little ring to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the main Currie Cup, we did have results from the weekend just gone. The Bulls managed to get a win against the Lions away from home, 31-26.
Awesome. Good for them.
Good for them. They needed it. The Sharks also getting some much needed victory, 27-20 against the Cheetahs.
Love it.
And then the Western Province, buoyed by the return of Sia Khaleesi, Captain Fantastic.
That's right. They
put 45 points to 14.
That was impressive. I saw that game. That was some good stuff.
It was some very good stuff.
Sharks 27-20 win, by the way, came with a 78th minute winning try.
There you go. They love an old last ditch try.
They do.
The Sharks
absolutely love it because they have clutch.
Yeah. But that leaves the standings in the Currie Cup as follows: the Griquas and the Golden Lions on top at 15 each.
Yep.
The Free State Cheetahs and the Western Province in third and fourth with 12 each, and then the Natal Sharks on 10, Blue Bulls on 9, and then propping up the bottom is the Pumas on 7.
Yep.
So it's still a bit bunched, but definitely the Griquas and the Golden Lions having the best of it so far, and the Griquas been very, very impressive so far.
Griquas playing Western Province.
Playing the Western Province this week.
That's an awesome game. I was going
to say that is an awesome game, to be honest, because both of them have a lot to play for, and it'll be interesting to see who gets the better of it.
Yep. Pumas are looking to cling on against the Cheetahs, who we're rooting for as well, and Sharks will be dishing it out to the Lions in Ellis Park.
Yeah, it depends whether they play it on the land or at the sea.
It does rather.
But so like obviously you're still rooting for the Sharks in there.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Cheetahs, I like the Cheetahs too.
The Cheetahs, as Pro 14 kindred spirits. Goes back to when we would always root for our Celtic cousins, but now they're kind of adoptive Celtic cousins.
Celtic, Italian, South African cousins.
Yeah, that little kind of tether that we definitely have to the Cheetahs.
/ maybe American in the future.
/ maybe American. Could be, yeah. But yeah, that's basically the news.
That's the show. That's the show. We've been on for forever.
It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
But thanks if you've stuck around this long. Fair play to you. We love you.
Trooper.
Indeed.
I respect it.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But we will be back next week, I suppose, to break down the matches that are upcoming this weekend and also look ahead to more of the World Cup warm-up games. And,
it's all hotting up, but the last of the competitive rugby ends this weekend with Bledisloe, and then it's all just in that pre-World Cup hype, and we'll be hyping it up.
Yes, we'll be
along with the rest of everybody else. We'll be hyping and hyping,
sure.
all the way until the World Cup kicks off in September. And I'm getting more excited every day.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll also be back on Unbiased Rugby channel. We were there with them tonight, which was Wednesday, breaking down Wales squad. You can check that out over there. Next week we'll be going through Ireland. Last week we went through England as well. We're going to be going through a lot of the World Cup squads in more depth with him, so you can check out him and give his channel the like and the thumbs up as well, and the follow
and the subscribe
and the bell and all of that, and you can do the same
comment
for us
on his channel as well.
But I suppose we will leave it there then, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week.
See you guys. Bye.
Alright, you're up. Can you nail it?
No, I was on the top.
Screen.
It was no good, really.
No,
it was also the top.
Overthrows.
They were decent throws.
Leading to soft tries.